How long did it take? How many arguments did you have to endure before you finally realized, oh, so this is what it means to be dealing with a narcissist? And trying to argue with them only leaves you drained, furious, exhausted, until, at last, you realize that silence feels far more peaceful. I understand that feeling, because, you see, they don't argue to find the truth, they argue to maintain a sense of control. Behind that confident facade and inflated ego lies a distorted defense mechanism built from a deep and hidden fear. The fear of being hurt, of being exposed, of having their true self seen. That's why they must manipulate, twist situations, and make you doubt yourself, because only when you are off balance do they feel safe. They fight back with words, with deliberate silence, with subtle tactics that make you question your own reality, all to protect the fragile ego they cannot face. So, I want to tell you this: don't confront them. It's not worth it. The more you react, the deeper you get pulled into their game, a game where they control all the rules. Instead, after this video, if you still have to deal with a narcissist, whether it's a family member, a friend, a lover, or a colleague, stay calm and apply 4 ways to disarm a narcissist without ever having to fight them. These methods aren't loud or exhausting, yet they leave the narcissist utterly confused, because for the first time, you are no longer under their control. And at that moment, you win not in an argument, but in reclaiming your own peace. And if there is a true starting point for the journey toward peace when facing a narcissist, it begins with emotional detachment. When you're in a relationship with a narcissist, what they truly crave is not love, it's your reaction. They feed on the emotional energy you create, whether it's anger, fear, or confusion. Every explanation, every tear, every attempt to make them understand becomes fuel that sustains their fragile ego. The more you react, the tighter their hold becomes. The more you try to understand, the deeper you fall under their control. That's why emotional detachment is not coldness, it's a profound psychological strategy. When you're no longer pulled into their game, you begin to see things clearly. This was never love, it was a struggle for power. Emotional detachment does not mean being emotionless. It means knowing when to care and when to stay silent. Not every insult or tear they shed deserves your reaction. In fact, to a narcissist, your reaction is the reward. From a psychological perspective, a narcissist behaves this way because of a distorted defense mechanism. They fear being hurt, fear being exposed for their true weakness. That is why they manipulate, blame, and twist the story, all to protect the perfect image they hold in their mind. When you react, you unknowingly help them preserve that illusion, but when you remain calm, they lose their footing. They don't know what to do when faced with someone who no longer wavers. Imagine someone shouting in your face, hurling cruel words just to provoke you. Your instinct wants to fight back, to prove you're right. But if you simply look at them, stay silent, and let the storm pass, something strange happens. They weaken. A narcissist cannot survive in silence. They need chaos to feel powerful. And when you stop reacting, you take away their greatest weapon. Emotional detachment is a conscious response. Unlike ignoring, it is not avoidance, it is full awareness without letting emotion dictate your behavior. You know exactly what's happening, but you choose not to respond impulsively. Every time you take a deep breath and stay calm instead of exploding, that is the moment you reclaim control over yourself. When you master your emotions, you begin to see their familiar tactics clearly, playing the victim, using silence as punishment, or pretending to be pitiful to make you relent. And for the first time, you are no longer swept away. You stand outside, observing, and even smiling because you finally understand the game. Emotional detachment is also the path to restoring self-respect. In a relationship with a narcissist, you once believed every mistake was yours, but when you pause, without reacting right away, you create space to see the truth. You were never the problem, you were being emotionally manipulated. That's when you begin to distinguish between what you truly feel and what was imposed upon you. Many people fear silence, thinking it's a sign of weakness. But silence is a declaration of strength. It says, I don't need to prove anything. I am strong enough not to react. And that is exactly what terrifies a narcissist, because all their games exist only when there's an audience. When you stop performing with them, the stage collapses. Even if they try to provoke emotions, act pitiful, or feign remorse, if you remain calm, you'll see their energy fade like a flame deprived of oxygen, because in the end, they cannot manipulate a peaceful mind. Emotional detachment doesn't just free you from a narcissist, it brings you back to yourself. You begin to hear your inner voice again, realizing that peace doesn't come from making them change, but from granting yourself the right to feel safe. And when you reach that point, you no longer need them to understand, apologize, or admit anything, because you've realized peace is not something they can give, it's something you create. So next time a narcissist tries to pull you into an emotional whirlwind, remember, you have nothing to prove. True strength doesn't lie in your reaction, but in your ability to stay calm amid the storm. That is the first way to deal with a narcissist, quiet, yet powerful. Because victory doesn't come from making them fall, it comes from standing tall, free, and beyond their control. Once you've learned emotional detachment, you move into a deeper stage where silence and boundaries become the armor that protects your soul from all forms of manipulation. The second way to deal with a narcissist is the power of silence and boundaries. I once heard someone in despair say, "If I don't respond, doesn't that mean they've won?" No, that's just an illusion. A narcissist lives by the belief that silence equals defeat, but in truth, it's the opposite. Silence is a weapon they cannot decode. They don't know what to do with it because their entire identity depends on your reaction. Every explanation you give is another breath feeding their hollow ego. But when you fall silent, they are like an addict cut off from their supply. Silence is not surrender, it is rising above their game. It's like refusing to wrestle in the mud with someone who's used to living there. You're not running away, you're standing firm. And it is that stillness that disorients them. Think of emotional detachment as building a fortress within yourself. It's not a wall to shut people out, but a citadel of understanding. You know who you are, what you value, and where your peace lies. So when someone tries to drag you into chaos, you can smile and think, "No, I see exactly what this is. I won't fall into the trap." That is self-respect, a quiet strength a narcissist cannot bear. They're not afraid of your anger. They're terrified of your composure. They can't stand your silence, because silence forces them to face themselves. Of course, cultivating silence and boundaries isn't easy. At first, you'll stumble, you'll react, you'll feel guilty, you'll get pulled back into emotional storms. But every time you stop halfway, every time you choose to take a deep breath instead of responding, you're rewiring your nervous system. You're teaching yourself, peace is not something others grant me. Peace is what I choose. And the moment you truly understand that, that's when growth begins. You'll have to remind yourself again and again, I'm not here to fix them. I'm not here to make them understand. I'm here to protect my mind. Because when you protect your mind, you're protecting your future. Once a narcissist realizes they can no longer touch your emotions, that their attacks no longer shake you, they start to shrink. You've taken away their drug, your reaction. So when I say detach from their emotional traps, I don't mean you should run away. I mean you should stand firm, but without letting them throw you off balance. Imagine yourself as a tree standing in the middle of a storm. The wind may roar, the branches may sway, but the roots remain deeply anchored in the ground. The storm can rage all it wants, yet when it passes, you are still there, whole, steady, and proud. That is the power of true stillness. If you can master this, if you can walk away from provocation without losing your dignity, if you can remain calm in front of a manipulator, then you have already won. Because a narcissist does not know how to exist in peace. They only understand chaos, and they cannot draw energy from someone who governs their emotions. When you control your inner state, you strip away the illusion of power they once held. You make them feel fear because they can no longer predict what you will do, say, or think. And in their world, Unpredictability equals powerlessness. That is the secret most people never realize. You don't defeat a narcissist by fighting back. You defeat them by no longer being their source of supply. So don't play by their rules. Learn to observe. Learn to breathe. Learn to walk away without goodbyes, without explanations, without seeking recognition. That is not coldness, that is self-mastery. That is freedom in its purest form. After you've learned silence and boundaries, the next step in your healing journey is the most challenging yet the most powerful, the art of active indifference. The third way, the art of active indifference. When you have learned to detach emotionally and cultivate silence with boundaries, you enter a deeper stage one where you are no longer just defending yourself, but truly reclaiming ownership of your mind. In that space, the strongest weapon is neither anger nor argument, it is deliberate indifference. You must understand something fundamental about power. It is not about speaking louder or reacting faster. True power is quiet, intentional, and controlled. When facing a narcissist, this becomes vital because they are constantly trying to pull you out of your center. They press your emotional buttons, twist your words, and provoke you into confusion, anger, and impulsive reactions. And the moment you lose your calm, they win. But when I say regain control through active indifference, I don't mean avoidance or denial. I mean reclaiming your authority over the tiny space between stimulus and response. That small space is where your true freedom lives. A narcissist constantly tries to invade that space. They want to decide when you get angry, when you cry, when you explain. They want to hold the strings of your emotions. But when you learn to pause, when you cultivate disciplined silence, something extraordinary happens. You begin to reclaim your mind. I once witnessed this in therapy. A woman came to me, exhausted and hopeless after years of living with a narcissistic husband. She said she had tried everything: arguing, explaining, begging, staying silent, then fighting back again. Finally, I told her one simple thing: stop explaining. The room went silent. She looked at me as if I had said something impossible. To her, silence meant surrender. But I told her no, silence is power. When you stop defending yourself to someone who never intends to understand, you stop feeding energy into that toxic dynamic. You send a powerful message: I am no longer easy to manipulate. Imagine holding a rope, and at the other end, the narcissist is pulling, provoking, demanding your reaction. Most people instinctively pull back harder and harder until both are exhausted. But something miraculous happens the moment you let go of the rope. The game ends, no shouting, no revenge. Just the quiet withdrawal of your energy. That is the essence of active indifference, not neglect, but a conscious decision not to let them invade your mental space anymore. A true boundary is not about controlling others, it's about controlling yourself. It's a declaration that says, this is where I end, and you begin. You have no right to decide how I feel today. You cannot rewrite my reality. And the most important part, you uphold that boundary without explanation. A narcissist doesn't want to understand, they want access. Every justification you give opens another door for manipulation. But silence locks the door. It is astonishing how much indifference unsettles a narcissist. They thrive on drama, chaos, and emotional friction. These are the things that make them feel alive. When you respond with calmness, with a steady gaze, with short answers or even with none at all, you expose their addiction to reaction. You begin to see that every tactic they use is a desperate attempt to pull you back into being their emotional supplier. I remember someone once told me after practicing this, "It's strange, ever since I stopped reacting, they've become even angrier." And I smiled. Because that is the sign of victory. When you refuse to play, you remove the only energy source that sustains their behavior. The rage you see isn't strength, it's fear. They are terrified because your silence means they've lost control. Still, I want you to understand this clearly. Active indifference is not apathy. It is the framework of peace, the art of responding with awareness rather than reacting from instinct. Imagine yourself as a captain in the middle of a storm. The narcissist is the wind, chaotic, fierce, and unpredictable. You could shout at the storm, but it would change nothing. Or you could quietly hold the wheel, saving your energy to guide your ship back to calm waters. That is the role of boundaries. They keep your ship from sinking. You decide who gets to come close, what kind of energy is allowed into your life. And when someone constantly brings chaos, you have every right to say, "Enough." That is not cruelty, it is self-respect. And you must accept this truth. No one will applaud your calmness. Those who once benefited from your lack of boundaries will call your silence cold and your strength arrogance. But that's fine. The peace you reclaim is worth more than any approval. Start with the smallest things. When someone tries to pull you into an argument, don't engage. When they twist your words, don't correct them. When they demand a reaction, give them silence. Then you'll notice a subtle shift within. At first small, then growing stronger. And you will realize something profound. Control was never in their hands, it was always in yours. That is the art of active indifference, quiet, steady, yet powerful enough to make their entire world collapse. When you've learned to detach emotionally, practiced silence, and mastered the art of indifference, you enter the final stage, rising above them. This is no longer a battle, but a journey of inner growth and liberation. The fourth way, rising above them, inner growth and freedom. Understand this. Narcissists survive on attention. They need to feel significant in your mind, that they are still the center, still the one who matters. Every time you think about them, analyze them, wonder what they're thinking, what they want, or if they'll return you, unconsciously hand them victory. Because the real battlefield isn't out there, it's inside your mind. The only way to win that war is to master the art of indifference. But remember, indifference doesn't mean apathy or coldness. It is an emotionally neutral state, the understanding that not everything deserves your reaction. Narcissists feed on your emotions. They don't need your love, they only need your reaction. Anger, sadness, guilt, or longing, all are energy streams that nourish them. That's why the one thing they cannot bear, the thing that truly strips them of power, is your indifference. Imagine a raging fire. That fire is the chaos they create. Accusations, manipulation, emotional drama. Most people try to put out the fire by arguing, explaining, or defending themselves. But the more you do that, the more oxygen you give to the flames. True mastery is knowing when to step back and let it burn out on its own. You cannot extinguish a narcissist's power by confrontation, only by refusing to fuel it. Of course, this isn't easy. Your ego will resist. It wants to be acknowledged, apologized to, treated fairly. It wants them to see your worth, to admit you were right. But the painful truth is they never will. Waiting for that acknowledgement only keeps you trapped in the same loop. Indifference is not coldness, it is emotional freedom. It's when you see everything clearly and tell yourself, their approval does not define me. Their reaction does not determine my value. And their chaos can no longer reach me. I have seen this play out countless times in real life. Someone escapes a toxic relationship, believing they're finally free. But weeks later, the narcissist posts something vague, a cryptic status, a photo designed to trigger jealousy, and within seconds, the person falls back into the same emotional spiral. They start overthinking, analyzing, asking, what do they mean? Do they still care? And just like that, control is lost again. But when you truly master indifference, everything changes. You see the post, recognize the game, and quietly move on with your day. No anger, no reaction, no story attached. In that very moment, you have reclaimed your power. Don't try to stop caring. Redirect your care. Instead of pouring your energy into them, invest it in yourself. Learn something new, read a book, exercise, build your career, nurture your soul. When your life becomes full of meaning, their chaos shrinks into insignificance. Because narcissists live for instant reactions, they are addicted to short bursts of control. But you are playing the long game. You are building character, resilience, depth, and true character cannot be manipulated. The beautiful thing about indifference is that it not only protects you, it exposes them. When you stop reacting, they unravel. They become confused, desperate to provoke you again, sending messages, pretending to be weak, playing the victim. But your calmness terrifies them, because for the first time, they are facing a version of you they cannot control. When you stand still before the distorted mirror they've built for years, that mirror begins to crack. They can no longer project their image onto you. You become an independent reflection, a person they cannot define. And that is their greatest nightmare. At this level, active indifference is no longer a tactic, it is an act of courage. It's when you say, I choose peace over validation. I choose dignity over drama. I choose the future over repetition. And gradually, something miraculous happens. You stop thinking about them. They no longer occupy space in your mind. You realize that this battle was never about defeating them. It was always about strengthening yourself. The peace you have found does not come from running away. It comes from mastering your mind and emotions. That is true strength, the strength of maturity. It is when you know that you no longer live according to someone else's emotional weather. Once you touch true freedom, you will never want to go back. Because compared to the person you are becoming, their chaos is now nothing more than a distant echo, faint, small, and powerless. And perhaps, when you have walked through all 4 stages, when every veil of emotional fog has lifted, when their noise no longer stirs your heart, what remains is only stillness within. A stillness that is not cold, but alive. And that is when the real journey begins. The journey back to yourself. You will realize that you never defeat a narcissist through arguments or revenge. You defeat them through your own growth. As you become calmer, more grounded, and guided by your own values, their illusion of power fades like morning mist. And then you see, the real battlefield was never outside, it was always within you. From the moment you learn to master your mind, emotions, and purpose, you have gained freedom, a kind of freedom no manipulator can ever reach. Now that the storm has passed, allow yourself to rest. You no longer need to be strong, no longer need to analyze anything. Just sit quietly, take a deep breath, and feel your body becoming lighter, as if every cell finally understands that you are safe. You have left the storm behind, stepped out of the vortex of control and pain, and returned to the stillness within. Know this, your peace did not come from luck, it came from courage. The courage to let go, the courage to stay silent when needed, the courage not to chase the things that make your heart bleed, the courage to walk away from relationships you once thought you could never live without. And above all, the courage to tell yourself, I deserve this peace. In a world full of noise where everyone is shouting to be heard, you choose silence. In invisible battles where everyone wants to win, you choose peace. And that choice, small but steadfast, is the clearest expression of freedom. So let your mind rest for a while. Let your heart be stitched back together with every slow, gentle breath. No need to force it. No need to pretend you're fine. Just listen to yourself. Because sometimes, healing is not about seeking more, it's about stopping and letting everything return to where it truly belongs. If someone has hurt you, remember, the wound does not define you, how you heal does. You are no longer a victim of your past. You are the author rewriting your story with light, with self-respect, and with compassion for yourself. And when this video ends, I hope you smile just a little, because now you understand. You don't need to defeat anyone. You only need to be yourself, whole, calm, and free. Thank you for being here with me, and with this journey. And if you wish to go deeper into the world of healing, psychology, and the stories that help you understand and love yourself more, please subscribe so you won't miss the newest and most meaningful videos from us.